TECHtalk. Today we are talking about Nebula 9.2. My name is Carsten. I'm your host for this session, and together with me is Phil. Hi Phil, how are you today?
Hello, I'm doing fine. Hope you're all doing well during these, let's say, dark times as well. Welcome to today's course.
Yes, and I think we jump directly into the topic and your prepared presentation. It will be very technical, I can say that. And I would like to also share that if you have a question, you can place it in the chat or in the question bar in your GoToWebinar environment. And we will also share a bit how you can follow this presentation also afterwards, where to find it, and what's coming up next. So I would give the word to Phil for the moment, and if you have something, I will see that on my screen here, and we try to answer your questions. So you're always invited to ask questions, that's for sure. Please, Phil.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's start the presentation. Please confirm if you can see it as well on your screen or not, so that we're not starting without the people being able to see us.
Yes, and I have to say I don't see it yet.
Okay. Then apologies for, let's say, for the inconvenience. None.
I think you.
Just a moment. And we will directly there for you, and then we can
make presenter. Okay, I make you presenter. Okay. I think that's the trick here.
Okay, perfect. Yes. Okay. Now I can share my screen. I hope you.
And now we can see the screen. Yes.
Cannot see the screen. But Carsten, no. Otherwise,
yes.
I will proceed to do my presentation. So first of all, welcome to today's presentation. We're going to talk today about what's new in Nebula 9.2, and we're using these TECHtalk series to tease you a little bit for upcoming features, for new, let's say, for new innovations which we're bringing. In today's session, we're going to talk a little bit about our newest version of the Nebula Cloud Platform 9.2. For those who eventually are not aware at all what Nebula actually is, Nebula is a cloud-based platform where you can register certain types of our devices and you can configure them via the cloud platform, meaning that wherever you are in the world, you have full access to your devices and you can configure it. This is especially interesting for freelancer IT companies or IT service people who want to, let's say, have their customers spread across maybe their over-regional sections, etc. But let's first talk about the agenda, which we're going to talk about today. I have, let's say, divided the presentation into 4 different sections. One consisting of changes within the Nebula Control Center. The next one looking at the NAPs, also known as Nebula Access Points, before we then move over to the Nebula Switches, NSWs, and then the Nebula Security Gateways, the NSGs. Following the agenda, in the NCC, we have certain user interface enhancements, as well as some changes in the MSP branding setup. In the Nebula Access Points, we're going to talk about dynamic personal pre-shared keys, DP-PSK, NAT mode, wireless bridge mode, and further enhancements. And the NSW, we're going to take a quick look at the GS1350 switch series, which are, let's say, brought out newly or quite fresh devices. We have one demo for decorative reasons over here, as well as on that slide or on that banner down there. And we will talk about some of the core features, but not going too deeply into, let's say, looking into those features. And on the NSG, we're going to take a look at the new feature, L2TP client provision. Let's first start with the Nebula Control Center and the graphical user interface enhancements coming with it. The first change is that in the summary report of the site, you have now the possibility to set up custom time ranges. I hope you can see the mouse. If not, if you look on the screen at the bottom diamond symbol over here, select range, then you have the possibility to assign freely assignable time ranges. Before, you only had the possibility to set up a certain amount of days which you wanted to look into the past. Now you actually can, very customizable, set that up, same like we had in the event log before. Also, one of the main improvements is that you have a longer range. Now you have up to 1 full year of reporting. In the past, you had a maximum of 6 months, but also only, let's say, not customizable, but only looking into the past. Now you're way more flexible, and you actually can use the entire year of looking back into your summary reports as indicated by the Nebula Professional Pack. And the third enhancement within the Nebula Control Center is within the AP and the Gateway client list. You now have a so-called policy dropdown. What that means is that you can sort the clients dependent on if there's a policy matching to this device or not. So here you have the possibility to either show all the clients or to show only the policy-related clients, whitelisted clients, blocked clients, for example. Furthermore, when looking at the Nebula Control Center, and we made some improvements on the MSP branding. Now, the MSP basically means managed service provider, and is kind of a concept that if you want to use your Nebula devices or your organizations within a shared peer group, then you can set up a so-called MSP consisting of multiple organizations, and then multiple companies or multiple technicians can then access these respective devices. So one of the things which we changed is you can now change the dashboard logo, meaning the small logo on the upper left corner over here can be changed to a custom logo. It's freely assignable. The only thing which is, let's say, restricted is the pixel size and the file size itself. So the image automatically resizes to 166 and 44 pixels, meaning you can, in theory, upload a bigger picture. It will then automatically resize itself. However, the maximum size of the device, or sorry, not the device, of the file, should not, let's say, consist of more than 200 kilobyte. And we highly recommend PNG. The reason for this is that PNG also saves transparency settings. So if you have a transparent background, then that will eventually, depending on how you save the PNG, will also apply to whatever you set up over here. For example, if you have the dark mode on and you would have a white background and you would upload a JPEG instead, then you would see that white background. It will not be transparent. With PNG saved in the right settings, you have the transparency also in there. Another thing is that we made the support request page changeable. Basically, when you navigate to help, support request on the Nebula Control Center, you are normally prompted with an address field where we have information regarding our engineering department in HQ in Taiwan. And this is now changeable because dependent on the size and the structure of the MSP, maybe not we directly are the first point of contact which you want to initiate, but maybe one of your technicians is the first point of contact you want to initiate, and then, let's say, kind of channelize all the support inquiries to our respective premises. In order to, let's say, cope with that desire, we have made this over here changeable, so you have the possibility to change that without any problem. Exactly. These features are, let's say, supposed to give the customer the possibility to make Nebula looking a little bit more like their own thing. Yeah, that's I think an important thing, especially when you are working in bigger corporations and you kind of want to, let's say, detach yourself from the name Zeisel just because you are the MSP or you are the service provider. I also think that. Let's move over to the next slide, which is the license calculator enhancement. So what we always have done is that there's some sort of breakdown to meet the co-termination date. What that means is basically in the Nebula organization, you cannot decide if only partially you want to have devices licensed or not. It's kind of a black or white choice. So that means that if you feed the organization with a certain amount of points, then you will always, or Nebula will always automatically calculate how much devices do I have, how much points do I have, and how long can I suffice with these points for all the devices within this organization. And that will lead to a so-called co-termination. What that basically means is that all the devices at the same time will become unlicensed because the points are used up. So this has stayed that way. The license calculator, however, shows it a little bit more clearer how much points you have to buy, how long you actually want to plan to have a license applied, how many points are missing, etc. And another feature or another small enhancement is that the Nebula security service points and the Nebula control center points are now shown within one dedicated single page without any clicking in tabs or something or moving around. You now have it all at one glance here over here. Exactly. Exactly. And now comes the question, how or where should you buy new points when day X is coming up? So what we have over here is we got our support portal, which can be reached via https://support.zeisel.eu. And when you click on this small window over here, then it will bring you to our web shop where you basically can purchase certain different types of license points, both for Nebula, or you can also purchase software such as the VPN client, which also at some point in time was a hassle in the past. And you also have the possibility to buy certain configuration services. More to that after the presentation. I want to give you a short glimpse of what's going on over here. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay. Just and you can also alternatively purchase the license points via your regional sales agents as well. Okay. So everything's turned on my side. Looks good, fun. If any technical, let's say, challenges come up, please let us know within the question box or within the chat box. We can directly react to this. This is absolutely open, and we're, after all, also only human beings who sometimes also do mistakes. So all fine with that. Yeah, so this is where you can buy the license points. I will show you this web page in real life in the end on my browser, but let's first continue with the presentation, shall we? Next topic is Nebula access points. Before I now move forward, are there any smaller questions regarding the Nebula control center so far? We'll wait half a minute to 1 minute so that you can ask those questions, and then we will proceed. And in the meantime, I'll take a nice cup, zip of my Zeisel mug. Okay, I understand.
So now it's working quite well. We can ask a question, but I didn't get the question yet.
Perfect.
So I hand over to you.
Thank you very much. Looking at the Nebula access points, when we're looking at the changes, we will first start with some minor enhancements before we go a little bit deeper into the enhancements. Now, wireless stuff or wireless technologies basically are kind of on the forefront of networking right now at the moment. I mean, it's understandable. We all have smartphones which have, let's say, wireless adapters, and wireless is becoming more and more popular with technologies like 5G coming up, etc. This also leads me to the following thing. Our next Tech Talk session will consist, or will take a deeper look into new innovations on wireless devices, and we will talk a little bit about wireless CAP web controllers. So definitely enroll for that course. I will show you in the aftermatch how to enroll properly and what kind of benefit you're having from that. Okay. Looking into the minor enhancements, we first got Smart Mesh. Smart Mesh is now supported by a lot of the 802.11ax series access points, if not all of them. There's also a model list on Nebula where we have all the information needed. On wireless health, we also now support the NWA 1302AC access point. And in the radio settings, we added that you can now also select 160 megahertz channel on the 5 gigahertz radio module. Also, when it comes to compatible devices, we have added the WAX 710D as well as the NWA 210AX access point into our Nebula capable portfolio. Taking a deeper look into some of the core features which we now implement with Nebula, one of them is dynamic personal pre-shared key, also known as DPPSK. Well, PSK, sorry. What that basically means is that each wireless client can now be assigned their absolutely unique encryption key without changing the SSID, meaning that you now propagate one SSID with multiple passwords compatible to this, depending on what, let's say, user is logging into the to that respective SSID. There's a limitation, however, that you only can set up one SSID per Nebula site to have this DPPSK enabled, and this feature requires a Nebula Professional Pack. Now, what's the benefit of it? The benefit of it is that you have way more control who's able to access your network. One could argue that the more SSIDs are applicable to the respective SSID, the less secure it becomes. But this is not true. First of all, there's a bind between, let's say, the email address and the password which you're sending in. So there's a clear definition of to which customer or to which person you have sent out this dynamic personal pre-shared key, and you can easily take away the right to access the SSID. So I personally find it way more secure, way more attractive, especially considering, for example, let's say more sophisticated hotel placements or deployments, or when you have, let's say, a dedicated set of technicians who are supposed to access the network. Something in that range, that's where the dynamic personal pre-shared key falls in.
So is there any limitation on the password, let's say length or complication and so on? So what is that?
Normally there should be absolutely no limitation, let's say, aside from the normal password length. So I wouldn't recommend to maybe set up a 128 character long password, but 64 characters should be absolutely no problem. Special characters, etc., shouldn't be an issue. If there is an issue, then you will directly see it where you enter the password, that there is then something wrong, and then you can react accordingly to that.
Great, thanks.
Moving on, short description of how you get there, how you get to set up your dynamic personal pre-shared key. First of all, in the access point configuration menu under the authentication setup, after setting up the SSID, you want to choose the SSID from the drop-down menu, and then under network access, instead of setting up a normal WPA2 password, you then choose the dynamic personal PSK. Also here, you always will see on newer features that you can check the model list, which is supported with that one. I unfortunately did not make a screenshot for this presentation, but I just want to let you know there is an easy possibility to check out which models are applicable for the feature. And also on the newer things, you will also find beta. Please do not be, let's say, a little bit scared of this word beta. Basically, in the Nebula, let's say in the Nebula terminology, it means it's kind of a newer feature which has been implemented. It's not in beta stage, actually, it's actually worked out well. It's just, let's say, the naming in that respect. So you first select the dynamic personal pre-shared key, enter a fallback key, so a kind of a backup key in case somebody forgot their password or they lost the email and it's not retrievable anymore, then they still have a backup as pre-shared key, sorry. After that, you move over to the cloud authentication page, which can be found either by the site-wide settings or by the security gateway settings that can be found as well. However, in the cloud authentication page, you have to select as an account type DPPSK, add another entry in there, then this window will open. And this is exactly where it comes in what you have asked me before. In case something is wrong, this will, let's say, be shown in red. Same goes with the email. If it's an invalid email format, then it will show you that there's something wrong over there. You just enter yourself over here, define if you want a VLAN ID, for example, or not, and then you generate or you send the password and create the user. By creating the user, eventually, if you checkbox the email DPPSK to user setup, then the respective user will receive an email with a notification that, let's say, an account has been created for them with the respective password. Let's move over to the next feature, which is NAT mode, and let's say my personal favorite of the functionalities which are now newly implemented. NAT mode means that the access point can act as an intermediate NAT device. What does that mean? We'll get to that in a moment. However, the scope of this feature is to replace small-scale routers in, for example, an internet cafe or somewhere where not that much of sophisticated firewall settings are needed, but basically only a NAT propagating device. How does this work? The access point indicates, as soon as NAT mode is set on, what kind of IP address it has been given towards. So it checks its own IP address and then compares it if it lies within the 10.000/8 network or within the 172.16.00/60 network. Depending on if one of those networks are already reserved for the uplink port, then the access point will change to the respectively other network and propagate the clients that respective IP address. If we now look at the IP address of the access point being 192.168.100.31, then that does not match with any of these networks, meaning that it will choose for the clients to give them via DHCP an IP address in the 10.0.0.0.8 range. As we can see over here, the clients then get that respective IP address. And the cool thing about this is NAT mode is an absolutely license-free feature. So you can use it directly on the fly without doing any sort of licensing before. Let's take a look at where we can set this up. It can be set up at access point configure authentication, as well as the DPPSK. A little bit below that, you can see the NAT mode feature, and here you can turn it on and off. And also here you got again the model list, which I now have made a screenshot for just to show you what then pops up over here. And as you can see, all the AX devices which are Nebula capable, as well as some of the newer AC access points, are capable of featuring or of executing this NAT mode. Let's move over to a kind of sought after feature, the wireless bridge mode. Now, it's some time ago that we implemented Smart Mesh to the Nebula access points, which was also a very sought after feature. And wireless bridge is kind of the evolution of the Smart Mesh feature. What does that mean? Wireless bridge basically means that you not only repeat an SSID, but you're actually combining, or you're actually connecting two access points with each other in order to extend the network then on the repeater access point, or I would say repeater in exclamation marks, then you can extend the network via an Ethernet cable, meaning that you can make sophisticated topologies possible where you have multiple buildings which you want to have in the same network, but you don't have the possibility to hardwire them. There you go. There you have the wireless bridge functionality, which can take care of that. In this example over here, we got the root bridge on one building, the repeater bridge in the other building, and then from the repeater bridge, we're moving an Ethernet cable into our further topology. Most Nebula access points support this feature. However, again, check the model list for the newest reference over here, because that's always subject to change. Sometimes it can be that with a small new revision of the Nebula Control Center, you would have more access points which are capable of doing that feature. So it's always worth a look to check for the latest supportable model list.
So this is a feature basically that is especially good for legacy installations where you really want to extend and you don't have the possibility to add another cable. So yeah, it's great.
Exactly. Especially in older buildings or in, let's say, very stiff structures, I would say, kind of where you have no possibility to rip up the ground to lay a cable or something. That's where this stuff is coming in. And that is actually something which a few of our top tier partners were actually really insisting and asking for, because our professional wireless solutions already had this feature, but it was not yet implemented into Nebula. So this, let's say, is kind of a game changer for a lot of our customers to finally do this step to move actually to Nebula. And yeah, it's becoming more and more the absolute innovation of our company, and always, let's say, kind of the main platform where we push also new stuff like DPPSK, for example. You can set up wireless bridge mode under the access point menu, under monitor, and then selecting the respective access point which you want to set it up on. And then if you scroll down in the device status settings, you have the possibility to set up wireless bridge. As you can see, the diamond always indicates that we are talking about a feature which requires a professional pack. So you will need the professional pack here as well. And here you can then set the wireless bridge. Exactly, and you can also set up the allowed VLANs if you want to set up something regarding VLANs. But note, we have a maximum support of 16 VLANs only. Further enhancements on the Nebula access points are that we now have integrated smart mesh failover. What does that mean? If you have two root access points, for example, and now the cable is now stripped away and the access point has no possibility to reach its normal gateway, if failover set on, it will turn into a repeater. It will return to a repeater instead, hence keeping your network still somewhat capable of, let's say, functioning. If this is turned off, then there still is kind of a failover, meaning if you unplug the access point from the uplink port, then it will still turn from root into repeater mode. So neither if you have this function available or not, we have done everything to, let's say, make sure that your network is always running under any kind of circumstance. Let's just imagine you got a hotel, you got those access points set in each room, and now somebody has a nice idea that it would be great to unplug the access point for whatever reason. As long as it's still powered up, of course, it will still function as a repeater access point in that respect then. Furthermore, we have enhanced wireless health a little bit, meaning that the DCS is working a little bit different, that it, let's say, more often tracks what's going on channel-wise, and we also have adaptive channel width, which then, let's say, changes the channel width depending on the surrounding noise or the surrounding interference. Over here, we got a small table as the last slides for the Nebula access points, where we are listing the specific features of the specific models over here. You can see, for example, that the NAP 102 does not support the wireless bridge. All the other NAPs do support the wireless bridge. The NAT mode, etc., works only on a few models, as we have seen already in the supported model list. Same goes for, let's say, wireless bridge. DPPSK works then on all of those devices, for example, but there are some limitations which you have to take into consideration when you are planning on actually using these kind of set of features in your topology. Are there any questions so far regarding the Nebula access points as such?
So if you have anything, then just let us know. It's great. Otherwise, I think, yeah, we can move on.
Perfect. Let's move on then to the Nebula switch. As said before, we're not going to dive deeply into that. It's just kind of to let you know beforehand, or to let you know as fast as possible. We have now implemented the GS 1350 series switches to support Nebula Flex Pro. What does that mean? You can implement them now either as a standalone device or into the Nebula cloud. And Nebula Flex Pro indicates that there's also, let's say, license bundles directly combined to the device on first purchase. The models of the GS 1350 series are the 6 HP device, the 12 HP device, 18 HP, and the 26 HP. This is the 26 HP, which we got over here. One of the core features is that, let's say, they are made for surveillance setups, so they have also BT, so the PoE 802.3 BT standard is implemented into most of the switches over here, and now they also are capable of handling Nebula. Some of the core features, or some of the further core features of the GS1350 series consist of continuous PoE, meaning that if you do a warm reboot, then the PoE still is applied to the devices, which can be very important if you have surveillance surroundings. So if you have surveillance cameras which are recording permanently, then that's a good feature. Extended cable range, meaning that you can, under certain circumstances, extend the range above 100 meters, which is the normal standard for, let's say, latest Ethernet standards. Then we have the auto PD recovery as well, client IP from LLDP, and voice VLAN using LLDP MED. As said before, we're not going to dive into these features over here. If you are interested in general information regarding the features which we're talking about over here, then you can also purchase the ZCE Switch Level 1 training session, where we're going to talk in depth about the features which these GS switches bring with them. You can purchase this course at https://academy.zeisel.eu. I will also, in the aftermatch, show you the page, guide you a little bit around. But just that you know, the information's out there, and we will also, of course, work to, let's say, implement that stuff into our knowledge base, but that's a very good starting point over there to get that information. And also, not only that information, but a lot of other interesting things as well. Let's move over without further ado to the Nebula Security Gateway. And the main change on the Nebula Security Gateways is that we now offer the L2TP client provision. What does that mean? L2TP client provision basically creates a script for your Windows or Mac device, which you then can easily execute, and it will take care of setting all the L2TP related parameters for you to connect to the Nebula Security Gateway via L2TP VPN. Meaning that the Nebula Control Center emails the script to the user or administrators in that respect. The script can be used for easy setup for the VPN. And the interesting thing over here is that the VPN server IP address is the NSG's public IP address. Now, if you are familiar with how the NCC displays the public IP address, that's an interesting thing, because the NSG's public IP address is not necessarily the WAN IP on the NSG. It's actually the first public instance which is met when looking into the internet, meaning that even this feature will work even if your NSG is behind NAT, which is a very interesting feature and making your life a heck lot of easier. However, this feature also requires the Nebula Professional Pack. So you now, based on these slides alone, have a lot of motivation and a lot of, let's say, key features which are worth the purchase of the Professional Pack. And this kind of script works on Windows 8, 10 and above, as well as on Mac OS and iOS. Let's take a look at how to set this up and what this kind of looks like. So when you navigate to Security Gateway, configure Remote Access VPN, the first step, of course, is to select the L2TP over IPsec setup. Then you would create the VPN subnet, input the pre-shared key, the shared secret, basically, and then click on Save. The next step will then be that you navigate to Security Gateway, configure Remote Access VPN, and you input the email to receive the VPN script, which then is a little bit grayed out over here due to, let's say, data protection regulations. And then you would click to add a new entry and then send the email in the end. So kind of straightforward, very easy if you know exactly what to do over here, just a few small steps. One thing to notice, however, is that you will receive a file which is indicated in the file format .bat file. This is to avoid antivirus programs, because normally the script should be a .bat file. However, this is kind of, let's say, fetched from many antivirus programs. And in order to avoid that, we have renamed it to .bat file. So you, as the user, have to rename this to a .bat file in order for the script to work. However, as soon as you have done the renaming, just execute the script and the script will take care of the rest. That then looks like this. The VPN should now be available. It should have the same name as the respective Nebula site, so it makes sense to remember your Nebula site's name and also make sure that you don't have, let's say, overlappings in that respect. And on the Windows PC, at least, it looks like that when you move into the showing the advanced options in the VPN menu, then that can be used in the end to verify the settings. So you can really check, has it really taken the right IP address, which should actually, but just to make sure that you have no mistakes over there, is it really LTTP with pre-shared key? Normally, there should be no problem. However, better safe than sorry. I personally would always just take a look at in the advanced options just to verify the results. Where can I find more information? We will take a look at this in one moment, but more information can be found either via the support portal, which you can reach via support.zeisel.eu, or our newly established Campus Academy, which you can reach via academy.zeisel.eu. We are heavily always working to improve our services towards our customers, so be sure to check that out. Make sure that you get familiar with the newest jazz on our sites, and then we're happy to support you wherever we can. Furthermore, are there any questions for the time being before we enroll and take a look at some of the sites? We'll wait a few minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, that you can ask your questions, and then we'll proceed that I'll show you a few sites.
So I think so far I didn't receive any question. It seems to be very clear what you're explaining, Phil. So that's great. And I think what is especially interesting also that you show us a bit later that if you want to learn more about Nebula and what else you can do, we do have our Nebula course, so that can be also shared from that. Maybe we use the time here very quickly that these tech talks we do on a monthly basis. If you would like to join, you also have the possibility to subscribe to our channel, you could say, and Phil will show us this now. So we switch over to Phil again.
Okay. You can ask your questions in the meantime if you have any. In the meantime, I will show you a little bit of our, let's say, I would say service portfolio or page portfolio out there. So as said before, we have the support campus, which is kind of, let's say, the heart of our support organization over here. We have a dedicated knowledge base with a lot of different articles translated in many other languages, where we always strive to have not only automated translations, but actually looked upon by a person who speaks that respective language. So that's an interesting thing over there. We are widespread across Europe, having a lot of different regional support offerings. And yeah, that's the first part of the knowledge base. We also have the demo zone, where we have a virtual lab and the customer experience center. Looking at the virtual lab, a very interesting thing in what we have looked so far, let me change this to English so that we all can understand, is that we have actually a GS1350 over here. Not in Nebula, but in standalone mode, but still nonetheless interesting and kind of semi-related to what we have discussed over here. Furthermore, you always see this upper banner over here, which when you click on this will bring you directly to our Zeisel web store, where you can purchase different configuration services as well as other licenses, meaning, for example, the VPN SSL client for Macs, as well as the normal IPsec client for Windows, and of course, Nebula points. And this is, let's say, always subject to change and to improve, of course, that maybe we might implement at some point in time other additional licenses in here, but that's, let's say, a matter, or that's, let's say, something which is lying in the future over here. You definitely have the possibility to buy Nebula points over here, which is the main reason why I'm showing this to you. Furthermore, we are always, as I said before, improving our services. One of those, let's say, desires to improve our services led to, let's say, founding the Campus Academy, which basically consists of the course catalog which we offer, the Z10E courses over here, where you can learn a heck lot of information about the different product ranges. So right now we got these 4 kind of, let's say, core competences or core, core technologies over here in courses, in which you can participate. And we also have the Tech Talks, which Carsten has spoken about on a monthly basis. When you register here, which is absolutely free, by the way, you can enroll for a course and you will always, or for a Tech Talk, and you will always receive new Tech Talk dates coming up. That will always lead to you being, let's say, in the know when something new is coming up in our company. And also, I think, let's say this kind of gives you a small benefit before maybe your competition, who maybe not joined the Tech Talk and maybe not is aware of what's coming up next.
So we could also say that you will find there the material and the recording of this session. And under the Nebula training, Phil, we also have implemented the 9.2 features already. So all that is there and definitely interesting to look at.
Exactly. Okay. In the meantime, moving back to the presentation, has there been any questions so far?
It's extremely quiet, unfortunately, I have to say, but that's the situation. So I think
if there are no questions, then that's actually a good sign. Let's hope for that.
Yeah.
Then first of all, I personally would like to thank you everybody for joining this Tech Talk session. I hope that you learned something out of it. I hope that it was of some benefit and use for you. There's a lot of interesting things going on at the moment, especially Nebula. Give it a look. If you have maybe one unit flying around, which is Nebula capable, give it a try. I am 100% sure it's worth it because this is the future of not only our company, but of networking in general. Everything is moving always straight into the cloud. And I think you are right on track when you are moving over to Nebula. So thank you very much. I'll give now a word over to Carsten.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Phil. Thank you for joining me here today. And I would like to just point out that we have our Tech Talks on a monthly basis. Next one is mid of September. And as mentioned by Phil already, we will talk about wireless and what's new on that area. So stay tuned. I can definitely recommend to join our Campus Academy to subscribe to our course, so then you're always informed and find the latest material. We will close here. Thank you very much and see you next time. Bye-bye.
We're Zycel, and we're your networking ally.